Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order for Monday, March 24th, 2025. Ask the clerk to certify the meeting notice.
This meeting has been noticed in accordance with Idaho Code 74-204.
Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Here.
Councilmember Page?
Here.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Here.
Thank you. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Changes to the agenda? Being none, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda as it is written. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Move down to special business. Mr. Wadhams.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This agenda item is just a work session, basically, to talk about a proposal by the Ada County commissioners, to have some Ada County impact fees. These Ada County impact fees would be countywide, and we've talked about them before. So to get your reference, I have a couple things in your packet regarding these Ada County impact fees. Two of our friends with the Ada County government are on the Zoom right now, Steve Rutherford and Leon Letson, if you have any questions. But this was really meant to just be getting this started back up to see what the council wanted to do. So on page 38 of your packet is a transcript that I included in there from the last time Mr. Letson presented to mayor and council. That was, I believe, September 24th of 2024. And Mr. Letson explained to the mayor and council what the ask was for the county, from the county at that time. Also on page 50 of the packet starts Mr. Letson's PowerPoint presentation of what these Ada County impact fees are all about. Again, it's to help fund paramedics, jail and coroner services countywide. And so that's the ask from the county. It's basically, and Mr. Rutherford or Mr. Letson could speak to this probably in more detail, but it's basically an all or nothing for the county. And what I mean by that is all the cities in the county have to agree or it's just not going to work. And so we've been kind of waiting to see what Boise City does and what Meridian City does. My understanding, based on what I've been told from those city attorneys and from Mr. Rutherford and Mr. Letson, is that Eagle's basically on board, CUNA is basically on board, STAR's basically on board. Meridian wants a memorandum of understanding, and I printed off a copy, and I'll include that. Well, depending on what the council's direction is, I'm happy to provide it. I have a memorandum here from Bill Nary. I think it was drafted by Kirk Starman out in the Meridian City Attorney's Office, but it goes through, it's 15 pages of why they think a memorandum of understanding is appropriate for the city of Meridian. I also understand that Boise has stalled. Boise, and again, our friends from Ada County could comment on this perhaps more than me, but Boise, it's stalled with Boise. So if Boise's a no-go, then this is a non-starter pretty much. And so what my recommendations have been in the past is to wait to see what Boise does and wait to see what Meridian does. But Ada County reached out to me and they asked for a status. And so I thought it would be a good time, since we did not have much on the agenda tonight, just to ask the council what you would like to do with the Ada County impact fees. Would you like to continue to wait to see what Boise and Meridian does? Would you like to go forward, which is what the county is requesting? What the county is requesting specifically right now is just to adopt the improvement plan, the capital improvement plan, which is basically one of the first steps, adopt that into our comprehensive plan or as an addendum to the comprehensive plan. And this is the same process for basically all impact fees. And later in the agenda, you'll see we're talking about whether Garden City should have their own impact fees. All impact fees, with the exception of the Ada County Highway District, are controlled by the same Idaho code sections, basically. And so one of the first steps, you have to form a committee. That's one of the first steps. And then you also have to come up with this capital improvement plan and put it in the comp plan or as an addendum to the comp plan. This is the same process we followed with NACFR. If you remember North Ada County Fire and Rescue, we have impact fees with them, and we're going through that process. I think every 3 to 5 years, you're supposed to update the impact fees. And so this is the same or similar process we have done with NACFR. What else? I think that's about it. I don't know, but that's really my question. That's why I asked it was that it be placed on your agenda, is whether you'd like to hurry, just continue to wait and see, or whether you'd like to direct staff to start working on this.
Charlie, without reading it to us, what are some salient points and meridians? I'm not sure what they're wanting to accomplish with an MOU.
Well, and I have it right here. I just printed it. Maybe Mr. Rutherford can answer that question.
Yeah,
I
welcome,
could
Steve.
defer Mr. Letson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start and Leon can clean up. Meridian is a little concerned about this idea that, they're going to go through this process and another city is going to kind of back out at the last minute. So we came to this idea that everybody would just adopt the CIPs because, it basically has no force or effect until you come along with an ordinance and an intergovernmental agreement. That didn't satisfy Meridian like they'd like to be satisfied. So this memorandum, it really is a long way of saying we'll go down this road, but we're not obligated at any point, and we want to be the last ones to adopt it. And if any other city pulls out, we're gonna pull out too. So we don't think it's necessary, but we're at a point where we really would just like to move this forward, which is why the commissioners have launched the countywide impact fees for sheriff. That will be in front of the commission very soon, next month, I think. And so they're launching that. And then they want us to go in earnest with all the other cities and show Meridian, perhaps even Boise, but mostly Meridian, that we have support. We've got support from the other cities. In fact, we're on planning and zoning agendas and city council agendas in the next month in CUNA, Star, and Eagle. So then we'll kind of work through Meridian and Boise as well, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions, council? Is everybody?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Charlie, can you just refresh my memory just because I was trying to read the option? Was one of the issues we had they wanted the city to collect the fees for them, and then it's like, was there gonna be a reimbursement from resources and time or all that? I mean, I think talking with Meridian folks, that was one of the issues. Did that get figured out?
What, no, Mayor, Councilmember Jacobs, not in any detail. I think that would be part of the process.
Okay.
One of the legal issues, though, is that the city cannot force the county to adopt the city impact fees, and any county cannot force any city to adopt their impact fees. It's got to be a consensual agreement, or it's not going to work. And so,
Right.
So that's one of the legal issues that everybody's been looking at. I can report that the attorney for the city of Boise that's on point, his name is Rob Lockwood. Of course, Steve and I know Rob well. And I tried to get an update from Rob last week in advance of this work session here. And Rob said that he will not have any more information regarding his electeds for a couple more weeks. And so Boise, Boise's the biggest entity, and they just have to move slower than the rest sometimes. So Boise's non-committal. I asked for an update yesterday or last week, and the update was, I'll tell you in a couple of weeks.
So this is more, we agree with it in principle, if we say yes, right? And then it's up to everybody to agree to the final language. Is that how that works? And then however long that takes.
Mayor and Councilmember Jacobs, I'm going to say the answer is yes, but I'm also going to say that Mr. Letson could probably answer that question better than me.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members and Charlie. Can you hear me okay before I dive into this?
Yes.
Yeah, so to Charlie's point, we can't force you to adopt an ordinance for us and vice versa. And so we are really in a position of working with you to help you draft an ordinance that would allow us to collect these fees. And your concern about resources as it relates to the collection and kind of administration of that whole effort would be subject to that interlocal agreement that Steve mentioned in some of his earlier comments. And that can include things like, a transactional fee per permit. I think we have some agreements with the fire districts of $15 per permit that we do this for them. They will reimburse us for staff time and different things like that. So we're fully prepared to work with any city that needs something like that to make their staff whole and that sort of thing. To Steve's point earlier and Charlie's as well, and I think what you were getting to, council member, this is really a phase 1 and phase 2 process. Phase 1 is really, in principle, we believe in Ada County's impact fees, and we believe their studies are valid, and so we will adopt them by most likely reference in our comprehensive plan. To Charlie's point, that doesn't give us the ability to do anything at that point, other than we all are agreeing on the same long-term vision as it relates to that service. It is the phase 2 part that's really the important part that says, all right, now in our code, we have an enabling law that says we can, per permit, charge this amount of money, and that will make that service provider whole in terms of growth-related impacts. So hopefully that answered your question, but if you have any follow-ups, I'm happy to answer them.
It was just more if we could agree with it on principle, but then it still takes all the cities in Ada County to come together and actually agree on an actual language of the ordinance. It's gonna be the same for every city, I take it.
Yeah, Councilmember, I think it'll be very similar, and we have prepared some draft ordinance language that we are willing to share with legal teams in each city. But it's your ordinance at the end. If you like to phrase things a little differently or that sort of thing, then you're welcome to do that. But the fee amounts will be the same. The documents they reference will be the same, but it'll be each city's own individual ordinance. So however you choose to draft that exactly is up to you and your legal team.
Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So just also to your question, council member, we have really kind of talked with Meridian about trying to kind of bend over backwards to make this easy on them. So, if you, your development services people want to send people down here to pay, we'll collect the money so you don't have to wrestle with it. That's easily tackled. In addition, we've talked about indemnification. Meridian's concerned that it's not their CIP, it's not their ordinance. And so they don't want to get in a dust up with a developer, and the county has offered indemnification that will come riding to your aid, or we'll do the special assessments in the event that somebody takes that road. We don't want to put you in an uncomfortable spot, but we feel like these are important, and so we'll do what makes you all comfortable, and it can be a city by city decision. We'll make you comfortable to the extent we are able to with things like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mayor, just can I add just one thing? There are some other legal issues that we don't need to decide right now, but I was just refreshing my memory. One of the concerns is whether the coroner qualifies to be law enforcement. For this to work, it has to be a law enforcement kind of a mission. And so one of the questions that have been brought up by some of the other cities is whether coroner qualifies. We don't need to know the answer to that right this second. I'm sure the county believes that they do because it's their proposal. And then back to Boise, my understanding is that this is under the review of Courtney Washburn right now. So they are still looking at it, and it's on Courtney Washburn's desk.
Okay. So the ask tonight is first step, we need to amend our comprehensive plan to include the capital improvement elements that this would entail. Obviously we're growing, and we're going to need more stuff. It's just, and we'll talk about some of our needs later. But the county utilizes all the services. There's some items. I'm going to I'll get an appointment probably with the commission chairman on a couple other minor issues that I don't need to vet tonight. But at the end of the day, I think it's a direction that the city probably ought to seriously consider being part of this. One of the things I will mention to you, of course, we're collecting, or we've got an agreement with North Ada County Fire and Rescue, of course, on impact fees. Impact fees are becoming the thing, and these impact fees, I think they're $750 on a single family residence. did my math right. There's only like 3 numbers to add, so I was pretty comfortable doing that. If I was using new math, I would have no idea how to do it. But old math, it's $750. So, and there's going to be some significant multifamily projects. And those are $519 a unit if I did my math right. So there'd be some money generated here. But it just seems to be the way we're trying to make growth fund a little bit of its burden, because the legislatures graced us with some impediments that we historically had to help growth pay for itself. And so they're pushing us to the private sector. It's kind of makes it tough to take criticism on the cost of housing or development in general when we're forced into these situations. So we'll get criticized for our processes, which the legislature is attempting to do at this moment. But they want to put us in a position where we've got to do some things that we didn't used to do to deal with what, in my view, they've neglected to do, which is give us the tools we need for growth to fund itself. So that's my soapbox elevator position on that.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing on this item?
You can.
Thank you.
Only one.
That's the last one. And I say it for Ms. Thornborough and Development Services, because there are a lot of open-ended questions like, which department is going to process this? Some people would say it's Development Services. Some people would say it's Public Works that should be processing these impact fees. So we don't even know. Staff's just looking for some direction and whether the council would like us to start allocating staff time on this project. But yeah, Boise's concern is who's going to pay up for their staff time. And so that's one of the questions that we would work out through the agreement with the county, but it would require city staff time.
Sure. But one of the, again, there's some details to work out, but I'd want to get with Jenna on the procedure to amend the comp plan. That seems to be step one, if I'm understanding this. And I've known Steve a long time. I think if he says he'll make it easy for us, then I think we can figure out a way for him to make it easy for us. I tell you, not having to collect the money here and validate that, if that can be handled at the county, and then we just get a correspondence saying you can release the permit because the fee's been paid, that kind of a thing, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah, that would administratively, that would be pretty good, but it's so we're not making formal decisions right now, but you can, if I'm not hearing a lot of objection to going ahead and looking at the CIP portion and conditionally moving this along.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
I'm going to
we
take
can
the
move
dead
along.
silence as I'll go to the next step, and I'll get with Jenna and we'll figure out and get our briefing in 2 weeks on the procedure to amend the comp plan and what that means. Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good. That sounds great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
You bet. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
You're doing pretty good there with the. Yeah.
Coming out of the cold season.
Weird like that.
All right.
Anyway.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right.
No.
Good night. Okay. Next item is Week of the Child Proclamation. Whereas the Idaho Association for the Education of Young Children is celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 5th to 11th, 2025. And whereas we are working to promote and inspire high-quality early childhood experiences for our state's youngest citizens that can provide a foundation of learning and success for children in Garden City, Idaho. And whereas teachers and others who work with or on behalf of young children from birth through age 8 who make a difference in the lives of young children in Garden City deserve thanks and recognition. And whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are crucial to young children's futures and prosperity in our society. Now, therefore, I, John G. Evans, Mayor of the City of Garden City, Idaho, do hereby proclaim April 5 to 11, 2025 as Week of the Young Child in Garden City, Idaho, and encourage all citizens to work to support and invest in early childhood in Garden City, and do hereby recognize that when our community invests in early childhood education and educators, we also invest in our children and families. Dated this 24th day of March, 2025. My wife said we need to include mothers in this proclamation. And I agree with her. Everybody got a copy of the staff reports in the packet. Chief, thanks for that expanded version, I guess I would say. I had one question that the council, and I forgot to ask you when we were upstairs together. Just so everybody's clear, we had response times, which we're always very proud of, particularly on our priority calls. So what's the difference between a code 3 and a code 2?
Code 3 would be here now, lights and sirens. If you're on it, like, for example, if I'm on a traffic stop, run up, give them their driver's license and everything back, so they see ya. Code 2 would be walk up, give it to them, don't run lights and sirens. And then a code 1 would be finish what I'm doing, give them if I'm gonna give a citation, give them their stuff back and then get there without lights and sirens, just normal traffic.
Okay, just wanted to make sure everybody understood the difference. So you got take it easy to the Calvary.
Although interestingly, I think code 2 was faster. The response time, if I read that right.
I'd have to go back, it might be, and it could be because there's more of them, and so
Oh.
higher, so it's easier to change the.
I got you, that makes
I noticed that too. One was a minute 46 and one was 2:57. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also could be some of our code 3 calls come when you're trying to run code down Glenwood at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. That would cause a problem.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Be an exciting ride along. So, okay, thanks, Chief. And of course, it's kind of fun to see all the stuff Colin's getting in the pipeline. So, okay, let's go down. Council President, you want to take item 4, please?
Thank you, council members. Beginning on page 81, do either of you have anything you would like to call out from the notice of decisions?
I do not.
I do not.
Mr. Mayor, I do not either.
Okay, thank you. Just as an information item, I did have an opportunity to talk to Councilmember Jorgensen, and likewise, she had no issues. Okay, we'll go to G1, Resolution 12-0225. This is our surplus property. Moving some of these items out that were listed. Are there any questions on that one? What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve resolution 1202-25 relating to surplus property.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Have any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Item G2, Resolution 1203-25.
This one's mine and Mr. Schmidt's.
Yes.
Okay, you want to start, Mr. Schmidt?
No, Mr. Wadums, you can go right ahead.
Okay, I'll give the legal review and I think Mr. Schmidt's going to get the factual review.
I thought you were going to give a detailed memo.
I have a detailed list. I'll be short, I know.
Took me 10 minutes to read it.
This one's not that long. The issue on this one is the test well 14. The legal issues are what happens when nobody bids on your formal bidding process. This is a public works construction that's over $200,000. So under the Idaho code, we have to follow formal purchasing processes. Mr. Schmidt did that and nobody wanted to bid on the project. And so then the question is, legally, what do we do now? And so if you look at the statute, it's Idaho Code 67-2805. This is what Mr. Schmidt asked me to look into, is what do you do now? Under that statute, I think there's basically three options, which are procurement without further competitive bidding, or we could rebid the project, or we could just declare that it go to the open market. And by we, I mean you. It's a city council decision.
You as we.
Yeah, me as we as me, whatever. You could go one of three ways. I think Mr. Schmidt just would like direction. My legal memo is on page 85. A proposed resolution is on page 88. And the proposed resolution, the way it's written, is that you're authorizing Mr. Schmidt to go forward without any further formal bidding process. I think Mr. Schmidt will tell you in his staff report here that he has a couple companies that are perhaps interested. He just prefers not to have to go through the formal bidding process again. This resolution would authorize him to do that. With that, I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Hey, Colin, why don't
Mayor,
you remind the council what our funding source is for this project?
Of course, you bet. Mayor, council members, first off, thanks to Charlie and his intern. I'm sure Zach did a bunch of work on this as well. Coming to some sort of resolution on this. To be honest, this is the first time this has happened on a project that's over $200,000, which is, well, it used to be a lot of money. Nowadays in public works, it's really not, it's not a huge chunk of change. But anyway, we do have a couple contractors who have expressed some interest in this for various reasons that they didn't initially bid on the project. The funding source for this is, it currently sits in the existing urban renewal area. So urban renewal is the funding source for this. Garden City Public Works is not. So this is one reason that we want to get this project moving. We have a public or a urban renewal area that's kind of coming to its twilight years. So we'd like to get this finished up. And what this will do is it'll give us the groundwork to proceed with a fully functioning potable domestic well in the very near future. So that's why this is in front of you this evening. We have kind of a short time frame that we have to get this work finished. It has to start after the irrigation is brought into the system and has to be finished prior to exiting, which is the middle of October. So the project will probably run about 6 to 8 weeks from start to finish. And the city's never done a test well before. And what this will do is it'll allow us to find the best quality water at the best depth, the best volume. And from that, we will build a well based on that information. So with that, I stand for any questions that you might have.
I wanted to understand the length of the project, council, and that's one reason that starting this process over again could be problematic and could delay us another year because we might miss the construction window.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt, do you have a preference as the Director of Public Works between option 1 to procure goods or service without further competitive bidding, or 3, declare that the project can be performed more economically by purchasing on the open market? It sounds like option 2 is not in our best interest.
Yeah, Mayor, Council President Page, 2 is not our preference, but if that's the desire of the City Council, we are more than happy to go out for a formal bid. It would just extend the project a few weeks. We would have to republish it a couple times. We would have to go through the open bid or the sealed bid process, which is we are not against that if that's what City Council would prefer to do. Option 1 or 2. Option 1 basically is I want to say the easiest, but we've already gone through the entire seal bid process, which was mandated by the state, which is fine. So I feel like we've done our due process here and maybe we just move forward at this point.
So 1 or 3 is better.
I would prefer 1, but again, that's at the discretion of the city council and the mayor.
Not quite sure what the difference is between 1 and 3, but I would go with your recommendation because I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I don't really know what the difference is between the two, but if it's your
Was your,
preference of 1, I'm on board with that.
Was your resolution written assuming number 1?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Councilmember Jacobs, number 1 is the way it's written. Yes.
Okay.
And I agree with you. That's kind of splitting hairs on that, but it's written for option number 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, any other questions? Pleasure to council.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve resolution 1203-25, approving authorization for the Public Works to proceed with construction of test well 14, using option 1 as drafted.
I'll second.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Page.
Yes.
Councilmember Rasmussen.
Yes.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, item G3, this is the 3rd reading of ordinance 1042-24. Charlie, for the benefit of our guest, would you kind of summarize what we're trying to do here?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'd be happy to. This is a code amendment that law enforcement and the legal advisors for law enforcement has been working on for, I'd say, a couple of years. And the goal and the idea is to have one set of rules for the Greenbelt from the 2C line to Lucky Peak. So it doesn't matter if you're in Boise or if you're in Garden City or unincorporated Ada County, whatever, it's going to be one set of rules. And it's just basically one rule, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it's just to make it unified for everybody that uses the Greenbelt so they know what the law is and they don't have to figure out, if they're in Boise or if they're in Ada County. I think it also helps law enforcement too, because a lot of times law enforcement, like a bicycle cop, a BPD bicycle cop, he might be cruising through Garden City, see a violation, and he might not know where the city limit line is. He might not know anything. So I think this would be helpful for the users of the Greenbelt. I think it'd be helpful for law enforcement. And I think it would be helpful for the prosecutors, the judges, everybody to understand there's just one set of laws for the Greenbelt. And so it's kind of a heavy lift, because getting multiple government agencies to agree on anything sometimes is difficult, but we have all agreed on this. And so if that answers your question, Mayor, I'll go into the details.
Yes.
Okay. So my memo on this one starts on page 206 of the packet, and it talks about kind of the history of it, that this is on your agenda right now for a 3rd reading. I talk about what happened at the 1st reading, and I talk about what happened at the 2nd reading. And I just want to refresh the council on a couple of things. On August 26, 2024, this city council decided that you did not want an administrative process for violations. That's different than Boise's code for e-scooters and e-bicycles. And I guess I should say what this ordinance does is really 2 different things. It regulates e-bikes and e-scooters and bicycles, which Garden City currently has no regulation on for e-bikes and e-scooters. So it updates the code for that new form of transportation. And then it goes into what we do about the Greenbelt. So for violations of e-scooters and e-bikes, if you were in violation in Boise, they would write you an administrative ticket. And that's kind of like a parking ticket, which if you just want to pay it, you can pay City Hall. It's done. It never gets transferred over to the court. You decided that you did not want that administrative process, that you just wanted them to receive an Idaho uniform citation by the law enforcement officer and then it get transferred to court. So that's an amendment that we've made as we've gone through this 3 reading process. And that is a difference from the city of Boise. One of the things I wanted to talk about, because there are 1 or 2 things that I think the council still needs to decide, is what these infractions are punishable by. And so on page 207, I mentioned here that currently, and I'm going to talk about specifically for our parks and our Greenbelt, a infraction violation is $74 plus court costs. But if you look at Ada County's ordinance, their violations are $100 plus court costs. And you look at some of the other jurisdictions and they're all over the board. So it seems to me that for violations of e-scooter and e-bike and for violations on the greenbelt, and I'm talking about infraction violations, let's just call it $100 plus court costs. That way, the officer doesn't have to figure out how much to write the ticket for. Is it $75? Is it $74? Is it whatever? It's $100 plus court costs. That is consistent with Ada County. I think that would hopefully simplify law enforcement's lives. And so one of your decisions tonight, I'm going to ask before the third reading is what would you like these infraction penalties to be punishable by? So we update some things and I go through that in the memorandum. There are some violations specific to e-bikes and e-scooters. And I would like to talk about those now. We add definitions, and one of the issues was how you define greenbelt. And you would think that would be an easy answer. It turns out it's not an easy answer. And so Ms. Thornborough and I, and then all the law enforcement officers that were involved in this committee and all the legal advisors that were involved in this committee came up with a definition that's currently in the Garden City Code. And it's on page 213 of your packet. And if you ask me what that means, I don't really know what that means. I think what that means is greenbelt 70 feet from the river. In any event, that's the definition that all the agencies agreed to. And I think that that's, as long as we understand what that means, and I mean law enforcement and prosecutors and judges, I think we'll be okay. But defining greenbelt was a little bit of a challenge for the committee when we were going through this process. So on page 214 of your packet, I have 510-2, and that's a completely new chapter under Title V. Title V is traffic. This is a new chapter for Title V, and it's specific to traffic laws applying to persons riding bicycles, e-bikes, and e-scooters, and it goes through all of those violations and rules, regulations, and responsibilities. I would recommend for any violations of this chapter, just call it $100 plus court costs on the infraction. And that's, so the penalty, I guess I would say, I'd ask that you read this for the third reading, pass and adopt as amended. One of the amendments I'm recommending then is on page 219, where it's 5-10-20. That reads, it's an infraction punishable by Garden City Code 1-4-1. The problem is nobody knows what that means. And what that generally means is it circles back around to the punishments in the Idaho Code, but the Idaho Code doesn't have punishments for a lot of these things. So I'm going to recommend that be amended for this third reading to say it's an infraction for $100 plus court costs. That is, again, that's another difference than Boise's code. I don't think this is the e-scooter and the e-bike regulations have been on the books in Boise for years. That was something that was pushed by a previous city attorney named Rob Luce before Jamie Sullivan. I don't think that they are actively enforcing this or prosecuting this, but Chief Stambaugh maybe has more information. I just think it's confusing on the penalty section to say it's the penalties as provided by some other chapter. And again, it seems to me that that would make a law enforcement officer's lives miserable trying to figure out what that means. Page 220 of the packet, we have this definition of greenbelt that all of the cities and the unincorporated Ada County agreed to. Going through, there's a lot of strike throughs. You'll see like on page 221, 222, so 226, there's a lot of strike throughs, and those strike throughs are regarding current code for parks. Starting on page 220 is the regulations for parks, and it's important for the audience and everybody to understand that in Garden City, the greenbelt is by definition part of our park system. And so regulations that apply to parks also apply to the greenbelt. And so these changes starting on page 220, these strike throughs, 223, so on and so forth, those are a result of me sitting down with Public Works Director Colin Schmidt and asking if he ever actually enforced any of these things. And I said, if you never actually enforce any of these things, let's get it off the books, because it's just, you know, it's just taking up paper and ether in the internet. So these strike throughs are things that Mr. Schmidt told me that he doesn't think needs to be in the code, that he's never really tried to enforce in the past. Getting to the meat of what the Greenbelt Committee did then, that's on page 225 of your packet. And that is A4 on page 225. What the proposal is and what you've agreed to on the first and second reading is a repeal of a speed limit in our parks, specifically Greenbelt, anywhere else on our parks. Right now, our code currently says there's a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit in our parks, including Greenbelt. What the committee agreed to is getting rid of a speed limit. There's no longer going to be a per se speed limit on the Greenbelt. Rather, this is the regulation. No person in any park, including Greenbelt, while operating any vehicle. So one of the issues was, should it apply to motor vehicles or any vehicle? The committee recommended any vehicle. So bicycles, e-scooters, e-bikes, roller skates, whatever. No person in any park, including Greenbelt, while operating any vehicle, go down to 4, shall travel at a speed greater than or in a manner that is not reasonable and prudent under the conditions and having regard to the actual and potential hazards then existing. Violations of this provision is an infraction. I'm recommending $100 plus court costs. However, if the travel also is likely to endanger somebody, so if you hurt somebody, you potentially are looking at a misdemeanor, which is a crime punishable by up to probation and jail, so on and so forth. So that's what the committee's recommended. That's what all the agencies in the county have agreed to. And if you remember, we did that in a memorandum of understanding. So we have a memorandum of understanding that's in the packet, and it's on page 223, starting on, 233. And I'm happy to report that finally all the agencies signed. So you have all the police chiefs and the sheriff and their legal advisors all signing this MOU, which is always a challenge, but we got it done. And then you can see, and also in this packet, starting on page 242, you can see that Ada County has already passed their ordinance. And the takeaways on that is they accepted our definition, the agreed upon definition of Greenbelt. They adopted and passed the violation, which is control of speed in the Greenbelt. Ours is going to apply to all the parks, but again, it's the same wording. And then you can see on page 243 that the violation is a $100 fine. And so that's what I'm recommending to you on the Greenbelt violation as well regarding infractions. I think this will help everybody understand what the rule of the law, the law on the Greenbelt is. It'll get us up to date on regulations for e-scooters and e-bikes. One of the things that to remind the council that you were not interested in is that Boise has a whole licensing program for e-bikes and e-scooters, and so on and so forth. Our police department's recommending that we don't do that. It's just, it's additional regulation that somebody has to staff. And so our recommendation is to not do that. So that was taken out for the third reading. Anything else? I think that's it. With that, I will stand for questions.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wadums. What I can think of 2 places at least in Garden City where the Greenbelt is a public street. It's a public roadway. In a situation where there's a conflict between the characterization of that particular section of the Greenbelt, what would control?
Well, so Mayor, Council President, great question. If it's not part of our park system, then it's gonna be regulated by Title V. And so so the Greenbelt's regulated by Title 10, and everything other than our parks is regulated by Title V. And so it would kick back to Title V, and I have a specific reference for you. And actually, some of the wording is on page 214, but that's not the specific wording. There's specific, okay, the specific wording then is, to answer your question, Council President, is on page 218 of the packet. It's 5-10-14. And it says, no person shall roller skate, ride or operate or skateboard or have a gravity operated or human powered vehicle not classified as a bicycle. Well, this is just part of it. Bicycle, e-bike or e-scooter in a bike lane or a bike path, except for in public parks. So I guess the point of saying that is it would kick back to Title V if it's not part of our park system. And you can see there's a ton of regulation in Title V. And so it'd just be a different title. Greenbelt, Title 10, other things regarding e-bikes, e-scooters, and bicycles would be Title 5.
Okay, thanks. So the rules are the same all the way through the system. The consequences of breaking the rules have some individual variances.
Well, and I think everybody will get on board with the mayor, members of council. I think everybody will get on board with that $100
Okay,
fine.
all right.
It's just that Ada County was the first to pass this, and now we're going to be the second to pass this.
Okay,
And I think everybody will follow our lead on that.
okay. Perfect.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Ms. Ross, a couple questions, just kind of reading it, since my home literally is on the greenbelt. I get to see everything that kind of cruises on the greenbelt. And so, and this might be a question for Chief, and so looking at this, it looks like it talks about e-bike being 750 watts, right? A lot of e-bikes now are 1,000 watts minimum, like all your kind of fat tire bikes are all 1,000 watts. You don't even have to pedal, you push a button and off you go, and they have a range of up to probably 25 miles an hour. So you see more of those. People don't really speed on those because they're just big old bikes. I have seen a couple of young kids flying by on those more electric motorcycles, literally flying down the greenbelt, you know. And since they're kids, they're doing what kids do, right? I didn't see everything defined, everything as kind of two-wheeled, I think, and there seems some pretty sophisticated hoverboards now. And guys are really good at riding those things. I'm pretty impressed. But they fly as well. So I didn't know about, how do we keep up in the ordinance with just the change in technology of this to account for higher wattage bikes, motorcycles now that you know, they're really off-road e-bikes or motorcycles that we're starting to see more and more on the greenbelt. One-wheel vehicles, which when I was looking through the definitions, it was all two, right? But I think there's a lot of those hoverboards, you know. I've seen guys on goggles. I mean, they're ripping down the greenbelt, and I happen to live on a straightaway, so you know they kind of let her fly. So I think my question is it seems limiting to have it at 750 watts, and do we need to expand the definition of that? Because some of those should just flat out not be allowed, like the motorcycles even be allowed on the greenbelt. And I didn't know what the cities were, if they even mentioned that.
Mayor, Councilmember Jacobs, my recommendation is don't even talk about it. Because that's like saying I have a Corvette and I can't drive it on Glenwood because it can go 180. Boise had a whole code laid out of type 1, type 2, type 3 e-bikes on speed and whether you pedal or not.
Just black and white.
It doesn't get, that doesn't get enforced. They had a part in their code that said that the manufacturer has to put a sticker on it that says what level it is. Well, I highly doubt that when it gets manufactured wherever overseas, that the Chinese government is going to really care on whether or not there's a sticker on it that says it's a type 1. So I wasn't aware that 750 was in there watts, because in my opinion, just get rid of all that and make it very clear that it's the behavior. And if you want to say if it's an electric motorcycle, I don't know. I would have to do research on it.
Is it more if it's electric, or what? It's more whether it's a bicycle, electric, a scooter. It's if you're going too fast, we're gonna find.
Well, and it's also, this isn't just directed at bikes, it's directed at pedestrians. It's directed at, if you and I are walking down this greenbelt and I need to stop and tie my shoe, I should get off to the side and not stay in the middle where I'm gonna get hit. I should.
Dog off leash.
Yeah, and so a dog off leash, kids under control. So back in like 2022, we put some detectives in shorts and t-shirts on the greenbelt, and every class of user, no matter what, who uses the greenbelt, there's 2% of them that are absolutely rude and don't care less about other people on the greenbelt, and they just stop and have conversations or they do whatever. And so the whole intent was to have a law that regulates behavior for all the users, and hopefully through education. 90% of what we would do would be education. Hey, if you're coming up off of a side spur from the greenbelt, the people going this way have the right of way. You need to stop, and if you step out in front of a bike that's going by, that's your fault. So, but so to have that same rule everywhere, so no matter where we're at, we can.
So I guess the point then is, should we make it less specific and more broad?
Okay, so
Just a question, or is that
No, yeah,
everything up you're doing with the other cities?
I have an answer. So Mayor, Councilmember Jacobs, these definitions, and they're starting on page probably 213 of your packet, 212, 213 of your packet. Those are all or almost all of them right out of the Idaho code. So it's definitions that our state legislature has adopted. And so the recommendation is just to keep it consistent with the Idaho code, because when you start confusing definitions, that's when everybody gets confused. So these definitions are to be right out of the Idaho code when they exist. And a great example of that is on page 214 of your packet. There's a definition for electronic personal assistive mobility device. That's a mouthful, but that's a thing. And that's right out of the Idaho code 49-106. So it's a state definition. I do acknowledge your issue, which is technology is always changing, and how do you keep up with technology? I would submit on the greenbelt, like what Chief Stanbaugh was saying, the definitions don't matter on the greenbelt, because if you're going too fast and you hurt somebody, it doesn't matter if you're on a skateboard, or whatever, e-bike, e-scooter, bicycle, one wheel. If you hurt somebody, or if you're being risky to the other members of the public, you could get a ticket. So I don't think the definitions are really applicable to the greenbelt issue. They do come in play when in Title V, when some things apply to e-bikes and e-scooters, but they don't apply to other things. And so, what does that mean? We did take out some of the more complicated things, like as Chief said, Boise has different categories of e-bikes, e-scooters, whatever. We took all that out because the police aren't going to care.
Yeah, I'm all for simplicity. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that
I agree.
regardless of what people do, that this covers them and we can ticket them or whatever, regardless of what piece of equipment they're on.
I would agree. Yeah, these are Idaho code definitions, with the exception being greenbelt. Idaho code does not define greenbelt.
Thank you.
Not yet.
Not yet. As soon as we come up with something, they're going to preempt us.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure it covered those different, just because I see it all the time.
Great question.
Great. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
so Chief, Mr. Wadhams, just want to thank you guys for this work. I realize it's been years since I can remember. And I'm especially thankful. One of the things that we discussed is, bumping this up to a misdemeanor if there's an injury. I like the idea of protecting our public's right to seek restitution for damages, and so that misdemeanor tool gives us that availability to correct as much as possible the harm to the victims.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for this.
Right. Great point. Great point. A lot of work done on this. A lot of cats to herd there.
A lot of cats.
And it was an effort. So, okay. Any other comments? We have a recommendation from our city attorney for amendments to make the fine an even $100. Section 510-20. There's a couple of spots that and where there's a fine mentioned for the infraction, it's $100 plus court costs.
Yes, sir.
Okay. With that, what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I recommend a third reading of ordinance 1042-24 by title only, noting an amendment of the penalty to be $100 plus court costs.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, the clerk call roll.
Councilmember Rasmussen?
Yes.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Third reading ordinance 1042-24, an ordinance of the City of Garden City, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, amending Garden City Code Title V Traffic to add Chapter 9 bicycles, e-bikes, and e-scooters, Section 1 definitions, Section 2 certain traffic laws applying to persons riding bicycles, e-bikes, and e-scooters, Section 3 required equipment, Section 4 riding on bicycles, e-bikes, or e-scooters, Section 5 clinging to motor vehicles, Section 6 riding on roadways, Section 7 using provided bike lanes and bike paths, Section 8 riding upon sidewalks and within crosswalks, Section 9 passing other vehicles, Section 10 dismount not required when stopping, Section 11 turn signals, Section 12 riding in groups, Section 13 bicycle, e-bike, or e-scooter parking, Section 14 use of bike paths and bike lanes by other non-motorized modes of transportation, Section 15, group events, section 16, unlawful use of bike lanes and bike paths, section 17, reckless or inattentive operation, section 18, defacing public or private property, section 19, basic rule and maximum posted speed limits, section 20, Idaho uniform citation for violations, section 21, penalties, section 22, removal of abandoned or obstructed bicycle, e-bikes or e-scooters or any part thereof from public places, and amending Title 10, public parks, and Chapter 1, parks and waterways, rules and regulations, section 1, definition, section 2, prohibited acts relating to park property, section 3, traffic, section 4, recreational activities, section 5, behavior, and amending the language to include provisions for e-bikes, e-scooters, and amending language to clarify prohibited acts and penalties, providing severability, repealing conflicting city code provisions, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
first, thanks to the clerk for the.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah.
I didn't hear, Mr.
And I move to adopt and publish ordinance 1024-24.
I'll second that.
Had a motion and a second to adopt and publish ordinance 1042-24. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk call roll.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Yes.
Councilmember Page?
Yes.
Councilmember Reston?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. That's our Greenbelt story. Okay, we'll move. There's no unfinished business. We'll go to new business. Item 1, legal briefing regarding potential Garden City impact fees. As most of you know, I've not been a big impact fee fan over the years, but I think the time has come, in my opinion. One of the reasons I've never really pushed for a Garden City impact fee is because of the rules that have governed impact fees. You generate the money and you have to spend it. I can't remember. Is it 5 years or so? There's a time limit. And we just didn't have the volume to collect enough money to do, quote, a project. But I think we're at a place, Jenna, you want to come on up because you had some things to say about this. We're at a place where I think we can utilize and justify an impact fee, the beneficiary of which would be our Greenbelt system primarily, plus Jenna's going to bring another item or two in. One of the things that impact fees have to do is enhance capacity in your system somewhere. And it's easy when you think about roadways, make them wider, fix intersections, that kind of stuff. Well, as we're converting from asphalt to concrete, we're able to widen in some areas, but even if we aren't widening, we're improving the efficiency of the system. That's my argument. And there's, I don't know, a couple of thousand units that are somewhere on the horizon that we're aware of in town. And that's money that you can at any time spend. It's not like you have to wait till you get $2 million to do this roadway project or something. If as you approach the time constraints, if whatever you've got collected, Colin can spend it and make it work. So Jenna had one other eligible thing that she had mentioned to me. You want to mention that, Jenna?
Mayor, thank you. In looking at the park system and in particular, and right now there's a couple of bills to limit transportation funding and how they're allocated. One thought that I had was extending a parks impact fee to include perhaps sidewalks, street trees, street lighting, et cetera, the items that the city's on the hook for in-road projects. And we'd have to do research. I don't know if that would be eligible right now, whether or not that's the connectivity component between the parks. And also knowing that it has to be for growth-related improvements, and if those would be considered existing deficiencies or not.
So it's details we can work out. You know, there's an argument for enhanced safety to accommodate more people. I mean, at any rate, I wanted to bring that to you guys. I'm not asking you to approve a impact fee effort tonight. I want to introduce it. I wanted, Jenna, while you're here, I don't know if you have anything to add to what I've asked Charlie to do, but what does it take for us to to adopt an impact fee ordinance?
Mayor, members of the council, I think one of the things we have to do now is come up with the committee, come up with a capital improvement plan. There's going to be a comprehensive plan amendment that's needed. There needs to be a study because municipalities and counties in Idaho need to be real careful that this only covers our additional costs for the impact of the development. Otherwise, it's seen as a tax, and that's where cities have gotten sideways legally in the past. But for just some food for thought, impact fees can be used for police, parks, fire, improving parks. So it's roads, police, fire, and parks. Boise in 2020, Boise was charging anywhere from $380 to $3,300 on their impact fees per dwelling unit, just to give you an example of what kind of money we're talking about. Nampa's impact fees cover improvements related to police, parks, streets, fire, sewer, water, pressurized irrigation services, and growth-related residential and commercial building permits. So out in Nampa, it goes to a lot of different things. So I don't know if anybody's thought that these could be going towards pressurized irrigation services or sewer, but the answer is yes. And so I think those are the first steps. Amendment to the comprehensive plan coming up with your committee, coming up with a capital improvement plan, and whatever else Ms. Thornborough says.
Mayor, if I may, some additional food for thought is maybe trying to herd more cats might be within the city's benefit. Right now, ACHD has a committee on impact fees. NACFR has a committee on impact fees. And should the city move forward with Ada County, which sounds like, looks like we may be going that direction, the city will have their own impact fee committee. And I don't know if there's a way that we could try to combine those into one.
There's likely no prohibition to being on more than one impact fee committee. So I have some thoughts on that. So I'm not too concerned about getting the committee together. I mentioned one idea to Jenna today, which may or may not work, but so I'm not too concerned. Let's see, all of you are married and have wives, so we got a committee.
Gotta get us to agree though.
Teasing.
And Mr. Mayor, on page 250 of the packet, last thing on this, I say what the next steps are. The last line is we need to create a capital improvements plan and establish a development impact fee advisory committee.
Okay. And the research to do this, we'll have to research what the research is to do this, because it may require a consultant. Yeah, because there's, if you look at the county impact fee, there's a lot of analysis and costs associated with that. We can easily map the areas of the green belt that would be affected. We have some fairly recent costs, per square foot or whatever, lineal foot. So we've got some information, and then, I think we can, but we might need a consultant. But I just wanted to mention that and see what kind of body language, frankly. So, okay, well, we'll explore that a little further then and be back to you. think we're to page 251 now. And again, Charlie, we're looking at changes to Title VI.
Mayor and council, yes, my memorandum's on 251, and all it is a memorandum at this point for this work session. Public Works, Mr. Schmidt came to me, he has some revisions to Title VI, which is water and sewer. I'm a one-stop legal department, so we're working on code amendments for all the departments. And so Public Works is not left out. And so Public Works is Title VI primarily. He has some amendments, but one of the questions we wanted to present to the council today is whether the council would like all these violations to be misdemeanors in Title VI. The way it's currently written, and it's probably been written this way since the 1980s or whatever, is that every violation that's unlawful is a misdemeanor. The question for the council is, would you like to bake in some infractions when we're going through this code revision process? And so my memo in 251 talks about the difference between infractions and misdemeanors. I can just tell you generally, if you call it a misdemeanor, and this is where I end up prosecuting for code enforcement violations, because we have quite a few different misdemeanors in the Garden City Code. And under the contract we have with the Ada County prosecutor, I prosecute those. So I'd be the prosecutor on any Title VI violations. If it's a misdemeanor, they have a right to a jury trial. They have a right to a public defender. They have a right to a speedy trial. What that means is it costs a lot more taxpayer money to prosecute one of these things. You have to pay a judge, you have to pay a jury, all that stuff. If it's an infraction, which is not a crime, and some people don't realize that, an infraction is like a speeding ticket, and a speeding ticket's not a crime. It's a civil violation. And so unless it's a reckless driving or inattentive driving or something, that becomes criminal. But for a simple speeding ticket, that's just an infraction. So what's that mean? If somebody gets a speeding ticket, wants to fight it, they go see a judge, they tell their story to a judge, the trial's over in like 5 minutes. I've prosecuted thousands of the infractions over the years. Once it gets bumped up to a misdemeanor, though, that's when jury trials get involved, public defenders get involved, all that kind of thing. And so from a policy consideration, I don't know if the council has any preference on whether we should perhaps amend some of these violations from a misdemeanor to an infraction. My very good legal intern that's in the room, Zach Stevens, on page 253, has some proposals for you where we could amend some of these violations, specifically 627, 628, 6218, 6315. And those were his recommendations. And what his recommendation is, and it's also my recommendation, is that we could have an infraction violation for those things, and then we can have a misdemeanor violation. So if it's particularly egregious, we could charge a misdemeanor, and if they abate the problem, we could amend it down to an infraction. What it really does is give the prosecutors more discretion on how to charge things and how to prosecute things. And so the legal recommendation is perhaps we amend some of these misdemeanors down to infractions in Title VI, and our recommendations are in the memo. But just from a philosophical standpoint, maybe the city council in 1980 did want all these things to be misdemeanors, but I don't know if the 2025 city council wants all these things to be misdemeanors. And so that's why it's on the work session. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Charlie, so I understand, are you proposing that some of them go from misdemeanor to infraction, or do you want just the flexibility of either or?
Mayor, Councilmember Jacobs, right now, the proposal is either or, but I think certainly some of them, and we've talked to Mr. Schmidt a little bit to get Public Works input, but I think some of them could just be straight up infractions from the beginning. But to your point, so I have a case, for example, right now, I won't mention the case name, but it's going to jury trial for a permit issue, and Ms. Thornborough is going to testify for us next month along with half of her department. And that is under a different title, but there is a misdemeanor and an infraction version. So I charged him with a misdemeanor. If he ever complied and did what Development Services wanted him to do in a timely manner, I would have reduced it to an infraction under prosecutorial discretion. And that's what this recommendation is. It comes in handy in terms of leverage. It comes in handy of trying to get the property abated or brought up to code. And so the recommendation is a either or right now.
So it'd be better to have all of them just be either or.
It's there's some that are would be particularly egregious that I think would start as misdemeanors.
Okay.
Like and Colin could come up with some that he thinks should qualify as a misdemeanor on the outset, but then there are some that are in the memo that we're asking for some prosecutorial discretion on.
Thank you.
Yep, welcome.
Okay, any any objection to him proceeding to develop this to the point where he can bring it back as an action item?
Not me, I'm supportive
Yeah, I
of
think
the
it's-
idea of going to more infractions on some of this stuff.
Okay.
Than misdemeanors. I think that's the right.
Mr. Mayor, I do, object is the wrong word, but I feel like the more specific we get in these ordinances, the longer they become. You have to imagine every possible scenario, which is really just impossible for us to do. Would there be any problem with having prosecutorial discretion on all of these?
Mayor, Council President, that's something we can look into. I could think of some scenarios which could get us in trouble on that. That's something we can look into. I think there might be some hurdles to that, just
Maybe just make those the exception, right? So it's just
right.
short of.
Well, and I could think of, so outside of the Title VI realm, like for example, a battery, we want that to be a misdemeanor. We don't want anybody charged with an infraction for beating somebody up. We don't want domestic batteries to be infractions. We don't want DUIs to be infractions. But speeding, yeah, speeding's an infraction. That shouldn't, you should not get a misdemeanor for speeding, but you should for a DUI. So
I trust your opinion.
so I hope that
I
answers
thought
your
we were
question.
talking specifically about.
Title VI.
Okay.
If I understand the question, Council President, are you asking just about Title VI or all of the Garden City Code?
Just about Title VI.
Oh, okay.
I feel like it would be a bad thing to address that.
Yeah, I thought that's what he was talking.
I see the chief's head back there exploding.
Maybe Mr. Schmidt could explain why some should be misdemeanors better than me. I can give the legal analysis, but he can give you the actual scenarios.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Some of the things that in my mind, when I'm going through the code, things that should not be an infraction or should not have a chance of being an infraction are tampering with the public water system, tampering with fire hydrants, anything that has a direct link to a potable water system that we have over 12,000 people who rely on it to be a safe, potable system. I don't believe that any of those, at least in my mind, there should not be an infraction opportunity. Those are legitimate problems that people deal with all over the country, and that could cause a lot of damage. So others in there are pretty minor, and I think having the ability to have an infraction or a misdemeanor, I think that's up to Mr. Wadhams as to how we'd like to proceed.
And just to give some hindsight or, some thought, Mayor and Council, is that in all my years here, I don't think I've ever prosecuted a Title VI violation. Maybe once or twice, but they don't come around very often. So maybe another thing is just to leave it alone. But I've only prosecuted it myself a couple times for whatever that's worth.
Hey, any other questions? Okay, I think you got the head nod, Charlie. Am
Yes.
I mischaracterizing that?
Mayor and Council, this is also the process that we're trying to follow for drafting ordinances. We take it to a work session, see what the council thinks, and then staff gets
Yeah.
working. So
Yeah.
that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, this is working well. So I think that if nothing else, that concludes the business on our agenda tonight. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
I
Motion carries. We stand adjourned.